the seventh day Shabbos, that's the Yom HaKibush, and anything which is captured as Shabbos is Roy Liyos Kodesh Le'oitzar Beis Hashem. Rashi's Michoel is the Medrash in Parshas Nosoi. I'd like to quote the Medrash. You have it here. Zogt Rashi, zogt the Medrash. Ephraim me'oiz roishi. Medaber Yeshua shoev mishevet Ephraim bu osam milchoma b'Shabbos. Shenema vayi bayom hashvi vayashlimu ba'alois hashacha vayesoy vayesoyir. Uminayin shoyso Shabbos shein shiva lo'olam b'lei Shabbos. ולפי יום שבס, אויס היום שקוף שיסריחוי, לקח אחרים אסיריחוי קודש להשם, כמו דסיימה, והויס אויר חרם אי וכל אשר בו להשם. אומר רבי שיעור, השבס כולה קודש, וכל מה שנכבש בשבס יהיה קודש, וכן הוא אומר וכל כסף וכל ריחוי שזו ברזל, קודש להשם. So Rashi quotes the Medrash. This is the Medrash in Parashas Nosoi, that whatever is nichbash Shabbos, Shabbos is kodesh, and everything which is nichbas, the cherem, the rechush, is also kodesh. The hemshech of the Medrash state Omar Abrachi HaKoyen Aso Ki'ir HaNidachas Aso V'Re'ir HaNidachas Asuro Be'ano Shene'emar V'Sorafto Bo'eish Eso'ir V'Eskol Shlolo V'chen Oimo V'Yachrimu Eskol Asher Bo'ir Me'ish Ad Isho Minar V'Ad Zokim V'Ad Shoyer V'Seh V'Chamoy Lefi Chorev is the reason why, a second reason, the reason why everything, any rechush in the shtot became a cherem is because it has the din of ir anidachas. It's not ir anidachas, we're going to leave it of the Zohar, but asol ki ir anidachas. So same as ir anidachas. The halacha is eskol shlolo. Here in Nidachas, the halacha is called Shlolo Tisraf Ba'esh. And here, but the Mekoir of the Cherem is the fact that Yericho has like in Ir Nidachas. This is another pshat in the Medrash. Omar Rav Yuda Alevi Bar Sholem, Limed Li Yisro Mashoma HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Reishis Arisoi Seichem Chala Torimu Truma, Omar V'Yehoshua, Oil V'Kovashnu Oisot Chilo, Nakdish Es Kol Shlolo Legavoya, so the third reason, the reason why the sholo of Yericho is kodesh, it's because it has reishis arisoi seichem chala torim utruma lashem. Since you capture Eretz Yisrael is kodesh, is the first kibush is the afrosh chala. The afrosh chala means we take all the belongings which are roy legavoya, all the mateches and the zov and the kesef, and we take it lo'itzar. It's no Beis Hamikdash, but lo'itzar Hamishken, which were these days in Gilgal. There's a Peladike Ravid. Before we start, it's the Peladike Ravid in Maseches Tomit. The Mishnah in Tomit says, look at the Mishnah in Tomit. Steht in Mishnah in Tomit. Before we go to the Mishnah, I would like to visit what happens when Yisrei come to visit Moshe, his son-in-law, after Matan Torah. Yisrei tells him, I want to make a U-turn, I want to go back, L'artzi u'lemoiladati. Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to convince, to persuade Yisrei not to go away. And he tells him, take a look, V'hoyo kiseilech imanu, if you come with us, goes as a payment. V'hoyo atoivahu asher yetiv Hashem imonu veitavnu loch. This toiv of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give to us, we'll give you. Zogt Rashi. V'hoyo atoivahu ma toiva etivu loy omru. Kshehoyo Yisrael mechalkin es haaretz oyo doishno shel Yericho 500 amol 500 amol. V'nichu milachlik. Omru mi sheibane bes hamikdash bechelko hu itlenu. Benkach ubenkach nesanu lebnei Yisrael leYonodov ben Rechov sheneemar ubnei Keni chosen Moshe olu meirat morim. They came to Yericho. The smetana, the creme de la creme of the Doishna of Yericho was an area Tov Kuf Amo al Tov Kuf Amo. If you want to get a shtickle measurement, if you know the Chazon Ish, It's 500 amas, 60 centimeters, 300 meters by 300 meters, it's 10,000 square meters, 100,000 square feet. That was basically the area which was called in Chazal, Bekama Mekomes Bashas, Doishno Shel Yericho. So when they captured Yericho, they said like this, we're going to take this smetana and we're going to do exterritorial. We're not giving it out to anybody. Why? Because down the road we're going to capture Yerushalayim, which happens a couple hundred years later. As we saw, we're going to see. This is only going to happen in David HaMelech's Zeiten 380 years down the road. But the halacha that Beis Hamikdash, each and one of the Shvatim needs to have a chelik. So we're going to come to Binyamin, or Yehuda, was on the borderline, and we're going to come to tell Binyamin, Ezachaim Binyamin, Ezachaim Yehuda, we are going to be mafkia a shetach of 500 amas and 500 amas. Why? Because we want Gans Klal Yisrael to have a chelik in the Mokom HaMikdash. Later on, they made a lekite, each one of the Shvatim gave 50 shkolim kesef, as a state shpeta by David HaMelech. But in any event, in order for everyone to get a part of Beis Hamikdash, they had to ex-territorial part of the territory that this Shevet, which is Nofal B'chelki Yerushalayim, he's giving to everybody else. What do they get in exchange? In exchange, they tell them, go down to Yericho, and that part of Yericho, which is the smetana, we can't give the Beis Hamikdash, but the best agricultural land that was there in Yericho is going to be given to that Shevet who's Beis Hamikdash Ipol B'chelko is giving over to Tevas HaKlal. What are we going to do with Doishna Shel Yericho? Now Shevesh HaKipshu, Shevesh HaChilko, they're giving everything out. What are they going to do with it until, for the next 400 years, until they're going to be Mechavik Yerushalayim, until we're going to give it to Shevet Yehuda, Shevet Binyamin is going to go to Yericho to get that smetana 10,000 square meters. What are they going to do with it? So they gave it to Yisroi. There's a pasuk, Bnei Keni Choysen Moshe Olam Irat Morim. Where does Bnei Keni come Irat Morim Yericho? Where does Bnei Keni Choysen Moshe come to Irat Morim? Insufficient for the time being between when Yeshua captured Yericho and 400 years later when David HaMelech is going to take back and they're going to give it to Shevet Yehuda and Binyamin in Shutfis to get it back in Yericho in exchange of their land. They let them park their car, long-term parking, for 400 years. So the Hoya Toiv Asher Yeti Vimonu, the Toiv, the shtickle smetana land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give us, we're going to give it to you for the 400 years from now, from when we're going to cross the yard and come to Eretz Yisrael, we're going to give it to your children. The Mishnah in Tomit state, look at the Mishnah in Tomit, Perek Gimel Mishnah Ches, state, Mirichoi hoyu shoim im koil shar hagodol sheniftach. From Yericho, they used to hear, from Yericho to Beis Hamikdash to Yericho, if you go by air miles, is on or about 18 miles to the place of Yericho and old Yericho and the place of Beis Hamikdash. On or about, between 15 and 25 miles, air miles from Yericho to Beis Hamikdash. Steht in Mishnah, it's a Mishnah. Miricho shem kol shar hagodol sheniftach, Miricho shem kol ha-magrefa, Miricho shem kol ha-eitz, she'osa ben koti muchni lekir, Miricho yishem kol gvini karois, Miricho yishem kol ha-cholu, Miricho yishem kol ha-tzaltzol, Miricho yishem kol ha-shir, Miricho yishem kol ha-shefo, v'yesh oimrim, af koilo shel kohen gadol b'shor shemaskir Hashem b'yom ha-kippur, Miricho yu merichim reach pitom akteres. Stel zich voor. The reach from the pitom akteres used to go all the way to Yericho. Omar Rabbi Eliezer ben Dagloi izim oyule beisava be'ar michvar. Har michvar is right by Yericho. My father had izim, goats, voyu misachois mireach pitom akteres. Like shmek, and they used to sneeze from the shmek from the pitom akteres. Man, this is unnatural. It's supernatural. Steht in Reivet, ich sag nicht kein Meisalach, steht in Reivet, sag der Reivet, afen Ort, umoiri arav achosit zal. Omar, de kol hanei anach de ktani shenishmoim bericho, meise nisim hoyu. Vad it's an ace. You can't hear something 25 miles away. You can hear something from 25 miles away. Vad nisht. V'davka hoyo b'Yericho nishma v'lo b'shar tzedodim. He says, let's go, if we take the coil from the Gvini or the Reach from the Kteres, you go 10 miles, 5 miles, east or west, of course you're not going to shmek. It was a direct line, a direct airline between Yericho and Yerushalayim. Ve'lo b'shar tzedodim. Zog the Ravid, listen to the Ravid. Rabbeinu Achosi, the Rebbe from the Ravid. Mipnei sheYericho isa k'mo Yerushalayim. Sheyoisa tchilas kibush Eretz Yisrael. Yericho was the first city they captured in Eretz Yisrael. Ukemoi de trumas dogon tzorich litroim. Azay, when you take a dogon, you have a wheat, you're supposed to be teirem. Kach nitremo Eretz Yisrael atzmo. You also make a meiser from Eretz Yisrael. Ubishvil kach echrimo Yehoshua, echrimo tzvei girsos Yehoshua liyos kodesh. Lefichach kimo Yerushalayim. והיו נשמעים בכל הנח תקטני כדי שירגישו בני אדם שביריחו יש כמויכן קצת קדושה כמו בירושלים. That sounds like a Rebbe Shemaisen. That in Yericho, Bibal, they were mafrishit, and Bibal is Azay Trumas Dogon, which is one of the 3 pshatim in the Medrash. It's Trumas Dogon, Chala, right? So there was a Maisen but the Maisen is this is the first town that captured Eretz Yisrael, because Shbochot's Ongishtotanes, that all these things that reckon in the Mishnah, they used to listen and hear and feel and smell from Yericho, from Yerushalayim, so given a Maisen. Why? Because, and Lefichoch zog der Ravid, ubishvil kach das Lashon HaRavid, hitrimo echrimo Yehoshua liyos kodesh. The reason why he's taking everything for Yericho, that goes with the 3rd pshat in the Medrash, but Akoponim, it's not stam that you use machrim it, but we see that it has practical ramifications, which had day to day, people sit in Yericho 25, 20 miles away from Yerushalayim, and they could hear, they could smell, and they could, whatever, all the association, because it's Kodesh Yerushalayim. Okay. It doesn't say anywhere there's a tzivui from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Yehoshua to be machrim and to make the shalom. Did he do it on his own or not on his own? Look on the, if you don't have a Radak, but I'll read you a Radak, and you have the Radak here. Zog der Radak, v'hoy sa'ir Cherem hi v'kol asher bol Hashem. You can take a look at reference number 7. Zog der Radak, sheloi tibone oid, v'chol asher bo shelo yehene odom mikol asher bo, v'nireh ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu omar leiken. Ki Yehoshua lo yomar dover kazeh miliboy. Where does Yehoshua take such a thing? Okay, Trume, mit Meises, mit Tiranidachas, mit Shabbos, mit Kodesh, alle heilige Sachen. Yehoshua wouldn't have made such a halacha that you're going to be machrim and excommunicate, you makdish, basically it's a cherem, it's a hekdesh, ve'aval pi shelo yizochel zeh hakosuv, imotzu kemo yisar rabim. Find many times in Tanakh that it's a tzivul from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it doesn't mention, that part is lacking. Ve'chazal omru, ki Yehoshua omar dover zeh mirtzoyne, ve'lo yomar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chazal say that Yehoshua made his egen shtickle toyer. It wasn't a tzivur from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Omar Yehoshua Yerucho ekvish atchil l'Eretz Yisrael v'netziya natruma ki ish azoy shemafresh es chalos mitchilas yisoso. V'od Omar Yehoshua b'Shabbos lochad Yericho b'Shabbos kodesh and HaKodesh kodesh kol ma shehu yeh kodesh shem HaKodesh la'Hashem oitzer Hashem. Ve'aval pi chen HaKadosh Baruch Hu hiskim al yodoy. U'minayin she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu hiskim al yodoy shene'emar chotu Yisrael v'gam ovru es brisi וזהו אחד מגימול שגוזרו בית נשלמתו והסכים הקדוש ברוך הוא עמון. זוג the Radak, Pashtus, we don't find it even. Chazal state that Yehoshua made it midaito without any instructions. Beit Neshama HaKadosh Baruch Hu was maskim al yoda. I'd like to read a Ramban, which is a very important Ramban. It's a long Ramban. The Ramban in Vayikro, the end of Vayikro, Parshas Bechukoisai, state Ramban, כל חרם אשר יוכל מידו אדום, היוצא להורג, ואומר אחד ערך כל לילה לא אומר כלום, ויסום מסחרי אוהלך לא מסלפיכך ליפוד אין לו דום ולא ערך. Instead of reading the whole Ramban, because I'd like to cover some ground, let me wrap up the Ramban. Ramban states that there's 2, you have the Ramban in front of you, it's a very long Ramban. Ramban says there are 2 different kind of charomi. There's one cherem, we know anybody learned erechim, know there's such a thing as cherem. Person is makdish kodesh lashem, which is something which is either to kotche bedek habayis, something which is royal bedek habayis, or to korban, which is something which is roy to korban. Same thing, we have a hekdesh, we have cherem. Kol cherem b'Yisrael, cherem is cherem koyanim, but the cherem is something which is roy, that's called the regular cherem that we learn in Parshas Bechukoisai, the whole parsha of cherem. The second cherem, it's the cherem that a person is makdish b'sh'as milchomo, and that cherem doesn't go to something which is dafka roy l'mizbech or b'nekabayis. You could even be machrim b'nei odom. In other words, it doesn't have any possibility to be makdish, to be machrim, this person l'gavoy, you're not makriv, but it takes these people and say, in the sight of a tzorah, in the sight of the milchama, you can go in that time and say, these people are going to be killed, are be kole, they're going to be eradicated, and therefore the Osabano. Ramban says that was the toast of Yiftach. Yiftach thought that the story of Yiftach, we're going to get there one day hopefully. Yiftach thought, he said, if you're going to give Bnei Amen to me, so whoever is going to go, and he didn't chap that it could be his daughter. And then he said, listen, I made a cherem. Cherem means it could be a korban. He wants to be mak of his daughter. It was a very sad story with a non-happy hand. We're not going to talk about the Torah Yiftach, that he thought that in the Milchama, when you makdish, when you machrim, the Ramban says, who can make this? Who is the one who has the authority to make this cherem of killing people? The Ramban says it's the Melech with the Sanhedrin. The question of the Ramban is different ways how to learn the Ramban. If it's a Melech together with the Sanhedrin, or the Melech or the Sanhedrin. When they go to a war, they can come and say, we are machrim, the achrimus, anshe kol year, and that's a separate authority of the Melech to kill anybody. That's not a cherem legavoya for akrova, but it's a cherem to eradicate somebody that go into milchama, midin cherem, and the Melech has the authority to do so. The Yerushalmi in Brochus, you have the Yerushalmi on the second page. Yerushalmi in Brochus, the end of Brochus. Omar Rabbi Shua Dromye, Shloisha Dvorim Gozru Beidin Shel Matu Yiskim Beidin Shel Mal Imon Ve'eleim Cherem Shel Yericho Megillah Sesta V'Sheilem Sholem Cherem Shel Yericho Chote Yisrael V'lo Yeshua Goza Elo Melamed Sheyiskimu Beidin Shel Mal Imon. Shalmi brings a raya from the fact that Yeshua was machriv, and it says Chote Yisrael Ve'ovru Yis Brit Hashem V'lo Chumei HaCherem. How could Yeshua made the Cherem Midaitoi? How could it be Chal the Cherem? Zog Yerushalmi behechrech, but Beis Shel Malo was masking, co-signed, undersigned the cherem that Yeshua made. You know, the Mabritzchias comes along and says that the Chur is a raya from this Yerushalmi like the Ramban, because the Ramban says a Melech has a din cherem, he can do anything he wants. So Yeshua had a din of a Melech. We learned the Rambam learns the whole halacha of Meir the Malchus and Yeshua Benun. So mitzad the din melech it could be chal the cherem. So what's the right for the Yerushalmi that he's skimu based in al yodei? You know, in Ir Anidachas it says, you look in Ir Anidachas, state in Ir Anidachas, v'es kol shlolo tikbut v'sarafta v'hoisotel olam loisibone oid. The Meir Simcha says a very nice pshat. He says, Veda, I did not bring it down, the Yerushalmi says, Broch Shlosh Shlosh Dvorim Yiskimu Shel Beis Shel Mailo, Cherem Shel Yericho, V'im Ne'em Lechem Avedov Torah, Ein Zerai V'Tzorich Chiyun, V'Lechure Mefurish Behod Omar Or Haish Asher Yokum Ubona Es Ha'ir Hazos Es Yericho, B'Bchoire Yazdeno B'Tziiro Yatziv Dloseo, V'Ksiv B'Yom HaBono Chiel B'Yisrael Es Yericho B'Aviram B'Choire Yesodo, U'B'Sguv Bo Yodil Lozeh Kidvar Hashem Asher Diber B'Yad Yeshua Binu. There's a pasuk, often a pasuk. Take a look at the pasukim later. You have pasuk Chavov. Take a look at pasuk Chavov. I'd like to run to pasuk Chavov. Pasuk Chavov steht as Vayash beYeshua ba'isai le'emoyer. Oru ra'ir asher yokum ubona esa'ir azois. Es Yericho bebchoiro yeyazdeno ubeyatzivu yatiz zoltzeyo. Zogt Rashi, moyer dikazach. בתחילת יסוד שיבנה בו יומוס בנוי הבכור ויקברנו וילך עד שיומוס בנוי הצויר בגמר המלוכו אי בעצוב עשת לוסס. If you're going to go rebuild Yericho, you're going to have such a punishment. You have 10 children. When you make the Chanukah, when you make the Evan Apino, your Bechor is going to die. And throughout construction, you're going to lose all your children. And he said, when you make Chanukah Sabayis, your youngest son will die. since we don't have too much time, I would skip and go straight to a little bit of a history of what happened. There is this Rashi, the Gemara. I bring down the Gemara. Look at the Gemara in the end of Sanhedrin, the Gemara in Perek Chelik. Look at the second paragraph in reference number 1. My iracheres. Gemara says not only you're not allowed to rebuild Yericho, you cannot build another city and call it Yericho. You can't perpetuate the name of Yericho. Yericho is going to be Cherem Lashem. Not to build Yericho and not to build the Ir Acheres elsewhere and call it Yericho. Zog the Gemara Hazeh. Look at the Gemara. Ma Ir Acheres Omar Avchis the Yericho. The Ksiv Ve'oisei Yecher Ve'ish Be'yishu Ba'yesh Le'yilemoy Ravu Ha'ish Lefnei Hashem Yoku Bonas Ha'ir Ha'zoises Yericho. Be'bchoyo Yazdenu Be'yatzi'iru Yatziv Doseyo. Tanya, zog the Gemara, Lo Yericho al Shem Ir Acheres Ve'lo Ir Acheres al Shem Yericho. The Ksiv Bono Chiel Be'Isoeli Es Yericho Be'avirom B'choiro Yizdo ובסגוב צעירוי עציב לוסיה. תניא באוויר בחויר ראשו, לא היה ללמוד, בסגוב צעירוי היה ללמוד. אוויר וסגוב מעבוד אוכי קומה. באוויר בחויר היה ללמוד לא עשה ראשו בסגוב צעירוי. ממשהו שנאמר באוויר בחויר אין יודע שסגוב צעירוי, מה תלמודו מסגוב צעירוי? מלמד שהוא מקבר והולך מאווירום עד סגוב. אחאב שושביני, ועשה יהיו ואליהו למישל בשלום ביתמיה, יוסף וקאומה דילמו כי מילת ישוע אוכילות, לא יריחו על שם עיר אחרת, ולא עיר אחרת על שם יריחו אומה לא אין. In order to understand this French story, I would like to give you a shtikale background on what's happening. And it's a little bit. It's a lot of information, but if you halt kop, you walk out of here or something. We had the first Melech in Klal Yisrael, Shlomo Melech. Shlomo Melech dies. He was Nimlach al Yedei Shmuel. And after Shlomo Melech, there was a very short Kufa, Ishboishes. His son was a Melech, a year and a half, but it really didn't count down in the history of Melechim. Afterwards, Shmuel goes ahead and makes David into Melech Yisrael. Shmuel is a melech, and afterwards Shlomo HaMelech becomes the king after David HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech builds the Beis HaMikdash HaRishon. We're holding at the end of Tkufas Mishkan Piloi, and David HaMelech gives over the Malchus to Shlomo, who's Melech Tachtech. And it didn't go well. For some reason or another, part of Klal Yisrael started fighting against Shlomo. They didn't take Shlomo HaMelucha. And then the Melucha, for the next couple hundred years, split. This is the whole Sefer Melech. These are Mamlechas Yehuda and Mamlechas Yisrael. They fought against each other. Mamlechas Yehuda, let me give it down to you, as Chazal say it. Mamlechas Yehuda, Shlomo HaMelech had a son, Rechav, who was a son of Shlomo, who had a son called Aviyah. Some Sefer Melechim is called Aviyom, with a mem, Aviyah. Also, Yehoshaphat, Yehoram, Achazio, Atalia was a woman. It's all Einik Lach Ben Achaben. Yehoyash, Amatzio, Uzio, Yosam, Ochos, Chizkiyo, Menashe, Omun, Yeshio, Yehochaz, Yehokim, Yehochim, Tzidkiyo. This is a period of over 500 years of Melachim. There's 20 Melachim in the list. Chazal counted only as 15 Deiros of Melachim. Chazal say that the reason why, by Kiddush Levana, what do we say by Kiddush Levana? We go outside and say, Dover Melech Yisrael, Keshem Shan, what's the ganze Meise? State in Chazal, it's not a Chazal, it's Yerushalmi, but the way the Goyen learns Pshat, there were 50, is a Medrash, based on the Medrash, there were 15 Deiros from Moshe Rabbeinu to Shlomo HaMelech, which was Aliyah, that's the first 15 days of the month, and then thereafter from Shlomo HaMelech till Tzidkiyo is going down, Klal Yisrael is going downhill. And we say the same thing, you see, you're going up, you're going down, and then you join the J curve and you go back up. Sha'amasidis li'ischadesh kemoy, so Klal Yisrael is ups and downs. This is according to the way the Goyen learns Pshat in Yerushalmi, which is partially a Medrash. But we have 15 generations of, which is really 20 names, but I'm just giving you an example that Yoshio had a son Yochaz and he had a son Yoakim. And then there was Yochim, who was the son of Yoakim, and then Tzidkiah, who was the son of Yoshio, goes back and takes for the uncle. It's not a Gere Hamtzah. It was those days as well. So there's 15 Melachim in Malchus Yehuda. At the very same time that Rechavam takes over from Shlomo HaMelech, Yehoram ben Nevat came and opens up his own Malchus Yisrael. They set in two separate geographical areas. Yehoram ben Nevat, and he goes down, he has a son Nodov, and then Ba'asho, Eilo Zimri Tibni Omri Achov. Achov was a Melech Yisrael parallel to the time that Yehoshaphat was the Melech of Yehuda. They both served the Melachim at the very same 25 to 30 years. And it goes down all the way to the end of Malchus Yisrael, which is the last Melech Yisrael was Oisheh ben Elah. The one before him was Pekach ben Remalyo, but the one after him was Oisheh ben Elah. If you remember the Gemara, we spoke about Tu Ve'ov, that Oisheh ben Elah was mevatel, what Yerovam put out, that people shouldn't be oil a regel, should go to the Oiv David Zorah. Pekach ben Remalyo, his son, the Hoshea was Memuna, he's granted not a son, he's Memuna through Melech Ashur, was called Tiglas, Pal Eser, he was appointed by him. But we have two channels of Malchus, Malchus Yisrael and Malchus Beis David. And at the time that Yehoshaphat, who was a tzaddik Yesod Olam, was the Melech in Yehuda, at the very same time Yerovam ben Nevat, Yehoshaphat was the Melech who was described, Sayin the Novi and Sai in Chazal. He was Meshaber, all the psolim that the previous generation erected. Yerovam ben Nevat, Yerovam ben Nevat was the first one. Achov was at the very parallel time to Yehoshaphat. So Achov was a Rosh Merusha, a Rosh Gomur, who was establishing every single Avodah Zarah. Chiel Beis Ha'eli, who builds Yericho and the Gel in Yonenu, was a Markol. He was a minister in the cabinet of Achov ben Omri. He was a minister. And he went and he built a Yericho, not the original Yericho. He went and he built a Yericho, a Egen Yericho. And what happened is that he gets a Oynish, his 10 kids die. His oldest son, Aviram, dies when he makes the first groundbreaking, and his younger son dies when he's making the Arnochas Evanapim. No, sitzt Shiva by the letzte Zun. Goes Achov, he goes to the Menah, pays a Shiva call to Chiel Beis Ha'eli, and Eliyahu Hanavi, who was holding diplomatic relations with Achov, L'tzerich Klal Yisrael, even though he was a Russian Yerusha, Achov tells Eliyahu, Efshe kumste mit mir, let's go together to Beis Ha'ovel. On the way to the Beis Ha'ovel, Eliyahu, he comes over to him, Achov given a Talmud Chacham, he can't drain with the finger. And he tells him, Efshe, I'm just thinking, the reason why he lost all his children, it's a major tragedy, because I read that Yeshua bin Nun said, Oru Ha'ish, Asher Yivnes Yericho, and he's going to lose all his children. So maybe Yeshua's kavanah wasn't only to build Yericho itself, but was also, if you build another shtot, you give it the name Yericho. Azay, Zok the Achov tells Eliyahu. Zok Eliyahu, he tells him, but I'll be honest with you, I don't really take Yeshua's Velta so seriously. Why? Because Yeshua is the Chatalmid from Moshe. Moshe is bigger. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Va'avad ishomu lachem peniftal vavchem v'zatem avadim elim achem v'shtachvisem lehem Horav Hashem v'otzaras hashamayim v'lo yiyeh moto." I'm in this business v'sartem v'avadim elim lo yinachti giv'o oyhar shelo yamadit bo avodah zorah lo shel Chazal. And it's raining, you know what? The Weather Bureau says 90% rain for the next 3 months. The whole thing is a joke. So you're trying to tell me Yeshua was a Talmud of Moshe? If somebody's going to build a city in the name of Yericho, he's going to lose it. It's a coincidence. It happens. It's not likely, but it could happen. That's what Achov, as I state in Chazal, tells Eliyahu. Tells Eliyahu, the Gemara state that Eliyahu goes and mevakesh rachmi b'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he asks him, please give me the maftech shel kshamim. I would like to have the maftech shel kshamim, and I would like to make. He runs away after from Beis Alva. He takes off. He runs away, and he goes to a place Nachal Karis. Nachal Karis, and he hides himself there, and then he goes to the Isha Tzfosis, and it's Michoel, the son of he's coming in, the kid dies, Eliyahu goes to the corner, and he has a conversation with Kadosh Baruch Hu. He says, do me a favor, give me the key of Tchias HaMeisim. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, you took from me the key of the motor, and as soon as he took the key of the motor, became a drought in all of Eretz Yisrael. He wanted to show Achav, Asido Amanig Lebirazu. He says, I'm going to give you the maftech of Tchias HaMeisim. The three maftechas le'nim sulu b'yad shliach. Chayo, Tchias HaMeisim, and motor. The guy says, Pituchei choysom kodesh la'Hashem, Pituchei maftechas choysom, Chayo, Tchiya, motor, le'nim sulu b'yad shliach. So you're going to have two keys, I'm going to have one key. Give me back the maftech of motor, I'll give you the maftech of Tchias HaMeisim. So he gives him back the maftech, and he tells him, go now to Achav and tell him the rain is going to start. Shouldn't think that Chas v'Shalom this. He goes to Achav, he told him the rain is going to start again, and he gets the maftech of Tchias HaMeisim, and his machye, the ben atzalfos, is the ben atzalfos. In any event, this is the story now. Rashi comes along and says, Rashi in Sanhedrin, Rashi says, Loshen Rashi in Sanhedrin, Rashi says, why, how do you know that Chiel built the ear in a different place? He called it Yericho. Zokt Rashi, lo yodati mino leho. I don't see, it doesn't say anywhere in the pasuk that's what he did. I mean, that's state the Gemara, that's what he did, but I don't know any place. The Yerushalmi, take a look at the Yerushalmi in Sanhedrin. Ksiv, Beyomav, Bono Yichiel Beisrael Yericho Ba'avirim B'choyer Yisodo U'Bizgoyv Tziro Yitziv L'Seyo Chiel Min Yerishofat Yericho Mi Binyamin El Shemegalgel In Schus Al Yedei Zaka V'choyer Al Yedei Chayav. What's the pshat in the Yerushalmi? I'm telling you pshat. It says Achav Biyomav Bono Yichiel Beisrael V'Vayas Achav. Look at the pasuk in Melachim Danamim. Vayas Achav is Hasheira. Vayosef Achov La'asas Lachis Hashem Elokei Yisrael Mekom Malchi Yisrael Shel Levonav Biyomav Bono Chiel Beisrael Yericho Ba'avir B'choyer Yizdo B'Zgiv U'B'Zkuv Tza'ira Yitziv L'Seh K'Dvar Hashem Asher Dibur B'Yad Yeshua Ben Nun. Frag the Yerushalmi Akashe Chiel Beisraeli. What does Beisraeli mean? He lived in Beis El. Where is Beis El? Anybody who knows a little bit synopsis of the map, Beis El is in Yehuda. Beis El is in Yehuda. In Yehuda is under the jurisdiction of Yehoshaphat. So why in the world the Kilkul says B'Yomov from Achov Arosho Chiel Beisraeli built a city called Yericho? That's number one. Number two, it's Sai under the jurisdiction, and Sai geographically is not in the Mokab Mamlechas Yisrael. So the Yerushalmi, Yehoshaphat was, that's Yerushalmi's kasha. Min Yehoshaphat, Yericho mi Binyamin, it's all Yehoshaphat, it's all Malchus Yehuda. Why you toilet the klolo in Achov? Elo, so the Yerushalmi, Yehoshaphat was a tzaddik, and the Kilku wouldn't have come. Therefore, you toilet in Achov was a Rasha. Megalgen schus al dei chayov v'choy v'lechem zochtam simcha. That's the raya. Rashi doesn't understand where's the raya that you have. He built another city, Shem Yericho, because Yerushalmi is kasha. Why you toilet in Achav l'chur geographically? Sai the shtot Yericho is in Mamlechas Yehuda, and Sai Chiel was from Beis El, who lived in Yehuda. Vosatos mit Achav was Melech Yisrael, not a Malchus Yehuda. Zog the Yerushalmi behechrech that Chiel Beisraeli went from Beis El to somewhere under the jurisdiction of Achov of Malchus Yisrael, not Malchus Yehuda, and he built another city called Yericho. So he got the Oynish. You know, the Maharsha says that this is, if you take a look at the pasuk, it's Yericho, the way Yericho is spelled is with a hey at the end. If you look in Tanakh, anybody that's shtickle, the word Yericho in Tanakh is mentioned 46 times. 28 times it spells Yud Reish Yud Ches Vav. 18 times it's spelled Yud Reish Ches Vav. And one time it's spelled Yud Reish Ches Hey. That's the story of Chil Beis Ha'eli. So the Maharsha, Behechrech, this is not the original Yericho, but this is a shtot that he called, to be Meir, he called a shtot on the name of Yericho. You're not allowed to be. Also, Zog the Maral, if he would have done such a Aveir, Eliyahu Hanavi wouldn't go Menachem Ovalim. If he did an explicit Aveir that he rebuilt Yericho, which is the Isa Mefurish, he says if he built a shtot, another shtot, he called it Yericho, that's already a limud. Rashi doesn't know where it's from. Ken Zayin, Eliyahu would have joined Achov for diplomatic reasons in Menachem Ovalim. But if he would have done it's very interesting that in Ir Nidachas it says V'hoyo V'skol Shlolo Tikboitz. Look at the reference number 4. El Torich Yechov V'sarafta B'ishe Sa'ir V'skol Shlolo Koli LaHashem Elokech V'oisa Teleu V'tibone Oid. Zokta Meir Simche, right? Shloisha Chilukei Dinim Ben Ir Nidachas LeYericho. This is very same halacha. Tel Oilam LeSibone Oid Yericho in Ir Nidachas. Aleph Bir Nidachas Osul Livnois V'im Bono Oisa Osul Leishabo Kishenema V'hoisa Tel Oilam V'ilu BeYericho Kol HaIsur Rak HaBniyasa V'Yibono Mutar Leishabo. The Isur is only to build, but once it's built, you consider unlike Ir Nidachas. Second, Isur Binas Yericho Rak Al HaYochid Shekosu Or HaIsh HaTzibur Oitzim Livnois V'ilu Isur HaNidachas Gam HaYochid Gam HaTzibur. And the third one, Isur Bniyah HaNidachas Shlo Livnois Kimi She'oisa Lo Tibone Oid. But if you want to build their gagois, a pardesim, is mutter. Yericho, in any form or shape you're building, you're not allowed to build. Okay? The Radak, bringing them about the Radak says that the Sa'ir Azois is Yericho here, by us. It says, look at the Lashon HaPosuk, the Sa'ir Azois is Yericho, right? Zog the Radak, the Chazal Pirshu Shelo Yivnu Oiso, ויקרו איסה בשם עיר אחרס, ולא יבנה עיר אחרס ויקרו שמו יריחו. ומה שיכרו איכם ישוע, רק הוספנו בספר הטעם. I just want to tell you that if you look in the history, we don't have too much time left, but if you look in the history, down the road, if anybody knows Ashtikal Tanakh, kum mit a gewaltige kash. Yeshua right now captures Yericho. He makes the Isur, he can rebuild Yericho, and you can make another shtot. Okay, so we find Chil Beis Ha'eli built another shtot, he lost his 10 children. Or Yericho Alein, Tel Oilom, Lo Yibone Oid. If you know Shtikal Tanakh, in the times of Pekach ben Remalyo, the end of Malchus Yisrael, state he made a milchama, 120,000 people came, and the Novi says, Vayakuma Anoshim, Ashanik Vayichshik Bashiva Kol Ma'ariyom, Vayan Ilum. And then Oided Anovi comes and tells them to give back. Vayavium Yericho el Atmorim etzalachem vayishu. In the Tkufa of Pekach B'Remalyo, which is 200 years after Chil Beis Ha'eli, we find a thriving Jewish community living in Yericho. And Eliyahu Anovi is Ola Hashamayma. Right after this story, Eliyahu Ola Hashamayma. State Vayikach es Aderes Eliyahu. The name Aderes Eliyahu, the Goyen, is after this passage. ויקח אסתרס אליהו, אשר נופלו מעולו, ויאמר איה השם אלוקי אליהו, ויקח המים, ויחצו, והנה ויעבור אלישו, ויראו בני הנביאים אשר ביריחו. So בני הנביאים are sitting in Yericho. Right after this, Eliyahu Hanavi is going Menachem Oval, there's the issue of bnei hanevim who are crowning Elisha in the place of Eliyahu Hanavi. It's in the Zeiten of Tzidkiah was the end of Malchus Yehuda. A couple hundred years later, it says he ran away from Tzidkiah from the Nebuchadnezzar. So where does he go to? Vayasigu oisa be'arvei Yericho. So Tzidkiah, so throughout the whole time, from the beginning of Malchus Beis David until the end of Malchus Beis David, you find Malchi Yehuda, you find Yericho was a thriving city. Not only that, if you look at Sefer Ezra and Nehemiah, state when they rebuilt the Beis Hamikdash also was Yishuv in the Zeit of Ezra and the Yishuv in the Zeit of Nehemiah. And what do we need more? Gemara steht im Psachim, anybody learned the Mishnah in Psachim, Mokum Shanagu, steht doch, Shisha Dvorim also Anshi Yericho, Shloisha Eskimo Yodom, Shloisha Eskimo Yodom. So Yericho is a thriving city, Adayim Hazeh. What is the Pshat? What is the Pshat? So one of the two, either built it in one of the three ways. Meir Simcha says that there's no Easter. Once you built it, you're allowed to live there. That's number one. Or the Radak in Melochim brings down a Rambam. I never found the Rambam. He says, "V'achocham hagodol Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon kosav hatam lios hamoifes kayom shenoflo choymes